Papa's here once again, and today I got a Sandocious Juggy build for you. It revolves around the infinite word tech using the Olroth's Resolve Flask and the Beacon of Madness boots. For those of you that don't know, the flask gives permanent ward up time at the cost of tremendously reducing the overall ward. What the boots provide is the Embrace Madness skill, which gives our character 4 different debuffs that stack up to 10 times each. One of those debuffs is the reduction of flask effect, which means that we gain back about 90% of the ward that the Olroth's Resolve Flask initially takes away. And henceforth, why you see the biggest amount of ward before you at all times. The key is figuring out how much flask duration and flask charges gained are required to maintain the flask up 100% of the time. I was able to get away with only using 2 medium cluster jewels and few passive points, but I'll go over this more in depth later on in the gear section. Anecdotally, if you have enough flask duration and flask charges gained, you can use a secondary flask, which it's not really going to provide too much because of the 90% less flask effect from the Embrace Madness debuff, but potentially elemental damage or poison tincture would be a nice temporary boost in damage. I myself played with one of them when I was running tier 16s to level, but since then I've dropped it because I don't have permanent uptime of the Olroth's Flask with that up because of the Trader Keystone, reducing 4 charges gained every few seconds. Back to the word. The reason why I have so much of it is thanks to few key items. Number 1, the belt does stand that gives 60% of the word instead of armor and evasion from the body armor. Number 2, the Faith Guard helm, which makes increased to max ES instead applied to word. And number 3, a beefy and thick body armor with a ton of armor and evasion. Those are the 3 items that are required to start this build up. Another big downside of the Embrace Madness skill is that one of the debuffs gives our character 60% reduction of action speed, and that is why I'm playing a Jug and took the Unstoppable Ascendancy node so that the downside is completely negated. If you're not a Juggernaut or a Trickster, you will have a bad time, unless you're going for some sort of niche build, maybe something like Viper Strike of the Mamba or something like that, that just hits hard once. That might work. I haven't tried it personally, but who knows, maybe I'll play with it in the future. Moving on to the choice of scale. I wanted to play with Molten Strike of Zenith all league long, and I finally got a chance to do so. It's very strong, especially every 5th hit, if you know. Anyway, I'm not using the Nimbus Ring or have the Runecraft enchant that grants projectiles returning, since they are ridiculously expensive. Instead, I'm using Return Projectile Support Gem and got myself the local increased elemental damage Runecraft on my sword instead. It still costs a pretty penny, but much cheaper in comparison. For clearing, I decided to use Lightning Strike of Arcing after having tried many different setups and skills. I tried regular Lightning Strike, Frostblades of Catabases, Lancing Steel of Spraying, another Molten Strike setup with Ancestral Call and GMP, and few others. To me, this skill I'm using right now feels the best and seems to have the best clear, but feel free to experiment yourself and see what you like. This build is not very socket starved, so I think the second setup for clearing fits well here. If you don't want a second setup or don't need one, then you can maybe get yourself a Withering's Totem setup, Immortal Call setup, and or get the Whispers of Doom anointment on your amulet and get a second curse like Despair for more damage. Maybe even Sniper's Mark and Mark on Hit gem supports. Offensively, thanks to the boots' innate explosion ability, that's not conditional, the explosions make clear feel fantastic. Single target isn't the greatest, but for the content I'm running, it felt good. Defensively, I have 13,000 unbreakable ward up at all times. I have 6 endurance charges, about to get my 7th, and I have immunity to ignite, poison, bleeding, and corrupted blood. With that said, the biggest weakness for this build is still dot damage, and if you're not careful, you can easily get too comfortable running most content, and then all of a sudden you'll die and have no clue what happened. So to combat that, one of the few things I did was for Pantheon, I chose the Soul of Aberith Aberrath to get immunity to Birding Ground. So as far as ground effects, the only other main one to look out for is the Desecrated Ground. In tier 17s, there are other things to watch out for, but this build definitely is the type of build that you have to keep an eye out on your life bar, because there are surprising amount of degen mobs and effects that can sneak up on you. On a huge plus side, Citadel Boss and Petrification statues are a joke. I love it. Anyways, let's go over the gear. Alright, so here is the sword that I'm using. Very, very nice. I got it for 8 divines, and I slapped the runecraft on it myself. Unfortunately, the first one I did gave me, what was it, like 53% or something like that. I'm going to show the footage here in a second. So unfortunately, the first runecraft I did gave me 53%, which was still nice. Again, this is a local mod, so the damage goes up significantly. But I decided, you know what the heck, let's spend 1,800 more chaos and try one more time. 79%, I'm going to take it. I'm not going to try again, but it's definitely a money sink. The support gems that I chose are as follows, just because, again, doing a lot of testing, this is what felt the best for me. Here's the Faith Guard helm, providing ton of ward. This is the beautiful, sensational Corrupted Keep chest. I did spend 38 divines on this. Hold your horses, all right? I know what you're thinking. I was using this one until basically the last level, and at that point, how much word did I have? Because I have 1360. I think I had like maybe 3,000 less. I had about 10,000 ward with this chest. This one I bought the base for 1 divine, I think, and I crafted it myself, so it was maybe 2-3 divines total. This one right here, 38 divines, but it is very, very nice. The support gems are as follows. Yeah. Beacon of Madas. This is one of the key items that makes this build tick. We are slowed, which again doesn't matter. Action speed, because we're Juggernaut. We have the flask charges debuff that is offset by a timeless jewel, 2 cluster jewels. I also have this wheel right here. And lastly, careful conservation, however you say that, thanks to the impossible escape jewel. Back to the Brutal Restraint Timeless Jewel. When you're searching for flask charges gained, there's quite a few different wheels that you can aim for. For example, this one right here is a very nice damage boost, but another one that wouldn't be too bad is also this wheel right here. And then also potentially Art of the Gladiator. So there's, potentially 3-4, I mean, you could even, if you're very low on resistances, you can take this wheel right here. So there's a lot of different areas you can get the flask charges gained. So play around with the different tattoos, the different oh, I did forget to mention, I do have 3 jewels that give me flask effect duration. For me personally, in my setup, I had to have at least 9% on all 3 jewels to make it work. Depending on your setup, you might get away with 8, 10, or maybe you don't even need these. But just something to kind of keep in mind. Play around with it. PoB is your best friend. PoB, your best friend. Repeat after me. PoB, my best friend. It'll let you know exactly what you're needing, whether that's a better cluster jewel or something else. Maybe with the impossible jewel, you can take these 2 nodes here as well. All right, back to the debuffs. Reduced life and energy shield doesn't matter because we're not leeching, we're not life gaining, we're not regenerating really, not that much. Instead, we have the dissolution of flesh. So not only does it give us about 900 life, but also it makes it so that after not taking damage for 2 seconds, we will basically be at full life. It doesn't matter what your life actually shows. It's just, are you reserved completely or not? And then Eroding Touch. Unfortunately, we do take, I think it's 60% increased damage, but with, you know, effectively 17,000 life. I mean, you know, and decent defenses. I do have stone, flesh and stone, which, you know, reduces the damage taken by 20%. So this is basically, you know, about 40% increased damage taken. I really needed chaos, so I got myself the Runic Gauntlets. That being said, maybe you can look into something like Asenath's Gentle Touch for that slightly better explosion and applying of temp chains on hit. Maybe even look into an implicit despair or temporal chains on hit, gloves, maybe even ward gloves, and that would be nice. Yeah. This is the tincture I was using temporarily. Again, gives me, I think it's like 30% more damage for 10-15 seconds. Very nice. I think that maybe the investment into more flask charges is warranted. I ultimately, personally, didn't end up doing it. The two rings that I have are self-crafted. This is my old ring that I just repurposed with spamming Essence of Delirium, I believe. But you can even get yourself something like this, which provides almost as much damage. I just wanted to be slightly more speedier with the onslaught on hit, and when I made this, I needed the dexterity very much so, and after crafting it, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going back. But something else to kind of consider is max endurance charge, because we're Jug, and they're very good. But yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks once again, and I'll see you next time with another beautiful build.